What's going on, you 3D modeling beasts? This is jlmussi, and today I have another Maya hard surface modeling request. This comes via my man Peter. He was struggling with a cylindrical shape in Maya, wanted to bang some detail in there. Seems like cylindrical shapes are causing a lot of pain out there for hard surface modelers. I'm gonna go ahead and take his model, do my own rendition, and keep most of the design elements the same, but probably add a little bit of my own flair to it. And hopefully you guys will be able to find value in this and learn some new hard surface modeling techniques within Maya. All that in the video coming up. Alright, so this is the model that Peter sent me. I'm going to basically focus on the areas that I see that he struggled in. I'm guessing that a lot of you guys might, especially if you're starting out 3D modeling, hard surface modeling in Maya, you might struggle. Obviously looking at this model, it's really not bad at all, but this you could obviously tell here of the edge flow. And then if we go here, and we activate 3 mode, things really fall apart, especially in these problem areas. A lot of these right here could just obviously be held up better by holding edges, but that's kind of the easier fix. So my aim in this tutorial is I'm basically going to concentrate on kind of these areas here. And you know, one of the reasons that this is not working is that these edges here kind of break up the flow of this cylindrical shape, right? So if we go to assign existing, we drop a blend on here, go ahead and go into 3 mode, and then we can go ahead and turn off the wireframe on shaded. You see that those edges, right, they're causing pinching here. So the challenging thing about this shape is that this is probably one of the most ruthless and hardest shapes to actually model, especially if you're a beginner, because you got to think about it like this. You have this cylindrical, shape that's symmetrical, perfectly radial, right? And then any edges that you add, especially if they're not, conformed and perfectly pushed out, they're going to break the continuity of this perfect cylindrical shape, right? So one of the things that could definitely help is that if you start with a more denser cylinder, right? And that's what I'm going to basically do. So we're going to allocate areas of detail. We're going to give it a higher density, and then areas that are not so dense, we'll go with a lighter base of a cylinder. And this is going to make sense once we start. Another thing that I do want to point out is that I'm not going to be covering every single hotkey. Every single tool. I will, however, if I don't show you the menu, I will put it on a card in the a call-out card within the video, so you do know how to access that tool. I'm not going to go ahead and completely rebuild this whole model because I think that tutorial will be a little bit more drawn out, and I can still draw the point across with a shorter tutorial. So let's go ahead and begin. I'm going to go ahead and create a cylinder here. And then I'll bring up the properties, and let's go here, and we're going to actually create 2 of these. So I'll go to 56, and then I will go ahead and create another one. So we'll name this low, and then I'll go ahead and create this one here, and I'll name it high. And then I'll bring up the properties here, and then we're going to go to 112 on this. And then I'm going to go ahead and group these. So here's the group, and I'm going to go ahead and move the pivot of this. So I'll hit D, V, and then I'll go ahead and scale. And I'm going to do this from the side view here and kind of look at my reference. So I'm going to go here to the front, and then now that the pivot is here, I could actually snap to the grid by holding X, and then I'll go back to the scale, kind of get the width right first, and then I can just push and do something like this. All right. So basically, since we use the group, we have a low version, right? And then we do have a high version of this within this group. So I'm going to go ahead and work with the high one first. And I'm going to go ahead and hide the low. I'll turn on, go to shading here, and I'll go to wireframe on shaded. And I'm going to go ahead and first create this in a modular way, and I'll explain that how that's going to go down in a second. But the first thing that I'll do is kind of look at this and just create this corner right here, right? So I'll go to my multi-cut tool, and I'll drop a edge loop here, holding down Control, and then I'll drop a edge loop here, and I'm basically going to go ahead and just work on this little patch right here. All right, and then what I'll do from here is holding down Control and middle mouse, I'll drop a edge loop right in the middle. I will also go here, and this is my symmetry line. So what I'll do here is I'll go to detach components, and this is already hotkeyed for me. So this is now border edge, and that's going to make it easier to basically see that also in wireframe and shaded view, which is kind of my symmetry line. Right? So from this point, I'm going to go ahead and kind of create that slant, and the easiest way I could think of doing that is just going here on the front view, and then with the multi-cut tool, I'll go in here and I'll go ahead and drop another edge, and then I'll go and basically create this line here. Right? So I'll select that strip right there, select that right there, and then I'm really just going to focus on this, right? So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and kind of create a top separation here. And with the paint selection tool, I'll hold down tab, and I'll just kind of paint. And I'm looking to get this strip right here, right? So this is pretty much what I'm going to detach. So I'll go here, and this is extract. So what extracting is just going to pull those faces, and now this is basically a separate mesh. From here, I'll go to my face mode again and kind of paint what where I want that hole to be, right? And then I'll basically just do an extrude and then play with the thickness and just push back on this just a little bit, right? So from here, this is going to be pretty much like I do most of my hard surface modeling. It's going to be a repeatable pattern. Now we'll show you how to do a asymmetrical detail, right? Since this is technically asymmetrical, right? It's not symmetrical. So from this piece, you'll be able to basically figure out how to do that. Okay. So the first order of business is to, basically reinforce these edges. Now, what I like to do is let's take care of the easy stuff first. So I'll basically select these guys here. I'll go ahead and select these guys here as well. This guy here, this guy here. And we're going to go ahead and do a bevel, right? So we'll do a bevel. We'll do 3 divisions, right? And I'm using this tool here, which this bevel option here, and within the modeling toolkit. And that's going to give you just kind of these interactive options for setting up your bevels, right? So we have 3 divisions, and the nice thing about the bevel is that it'll basically put that on either side, right? So we don't have to manually go and I'll hit 3, and we'll see how we're doing here, right? So this is actually not too bad, but we'll definitely get pinching. I could just tell by how this is kind of collapsing. If I go to assign existing material blend, the pinch is going to be a little bit more obvious, right? So we see it here, we see it here, and obviously this is kind of cut off, so we are getting a little bit of deformation here as well, right? So the first thing that we have to do is think about, well, what's going to take to hold this edge here, right? So we already have the edges basically in the right place that's going to hold us up, but the problem is, especially on cylindrical areas, and if this was a flat area, this would be a different ball game. But since it's cylindrical, kind of this end-gon is causing an issue, right? So let's go ahead and rectify that issue. So from here, I'll enable the multi-cut, do Control-Shift, and if we go here on the side view, you see that Control-Shift will constraint to 90-degree increments. So there's one edge. And then there is the second edge, And I'll take this guy here. I'm just going to move it slightly, right? So I'll go to 3 mode and I'll look at the pinching, and that looks pretty good, right? So we kind of alleviated a lot of it just by fixing up that end gun that we had. So let's work on this bottom one. This is going to be a little bit more challenging, but we'll get through it. So in essence, we basically want these edges close, but we don't want to continue these edges here, right? So the problem here is that we kind of have this, which is not ideal, this little quad. And then, you know, if we were just to basically drop some loops here, this is going to basically crease this edge. So we'll get some sharpening there. So we kind of want to feather this thing a little bit, right? And the good thing is we're working on this denser part, right? This denser mesh. We're going to make a transition, right? So what I'll do here is I'm going to go ahead and go here to the front view. And then with the multi-cut, since this little bevel kind of screwed things up, right? Like we can't add a whole loop. What we could do is just go here and click here, hold down shift to snap, right? And then kind of move this where I want. And then I'll hit enter, and there we go. So we didn't need to have perfect quads to drop that edge loop. That's the nice function of that functionality in the multi-cut, right? So from this point, what I want to do is basically kind of feather that holding edge out. So I'll go ahead and connect this guy from here and do that, and then I'll do that here as well. And what I can do here is kind of merge these guys, and then we could basically delete this guy here, and we'll probably delete from here. So we'll kill that, and we can go ahead and kill this guy as well. Now I'm not going to kill the whole thing. I'm just going to kill from here to here, because we're actually going to do the same exact thing on the inside as well. So we'll go ahead and get the multi-cut tool, connect these guys like so. And then I'll go ahead and connect this guy here like this. I'll connect this guy like so. And now I should be able to delete this, delete that, and we're all quadded. So let's see how the mesh is actually going to hold up. So it looks pretty good, okay? So now, and I'm not going to worry about this because the Symmetry will take care of this. So now it's time to basically figure out, well, we have this little strip here, and this is kind of the cool thing about working modularly. So what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and probably bring this down a little bit. This is going to get mirrored over. So we do need to get rid of these guys here. This is going to pose an issue. Obviously, it's going to create some yucky stuff, right? If we leave it there, right? So just make sure that this is clean. And then from this point, we can do our mirror. So I hit D, V. I'm going to vert snap here. Go back to my move tool. Shift right click. Mirror, options, in the Y, object, and then we'll do mirror. And then we can go hold down Control. And just, what I like to do is just bring it to 0. And then I like to do Control Shift. And it helps if we're on wireframe here. But I basically want to give it the lowest amount of value or threshold. That's going to get rid of that borderline, right? Because what happens sometimes, especially if you got bevels, if you crank this up, you get this over pinching, right? So 0.7 looks good. That looks good. So now here we go. And we have kind of this first piece of the puzzle, right? Since we already built kind of the piece that I wanted, I could actually hide this higher dense one. And then I'll go back to the outliner. And what I'll do from there is turn on the low, right? You have this little piece and you would treat it like a modular piece. So, you know, you can go ahead and first obviously make sure the pivot is right here. So you'll hit D, V, and then we convert snap here, right? So from that point, what you could do is, kind of explore and see what you got. So you can hold down J, maybe you could move it here, right? And then, maybe you could move that there like that. Now, if we had, both of these pieces, you could, clean this up here and just kind of create that 9-degree angle. So you could really get creative. Is I'm just going to take this guy here and I'll hit D again, V to snap, right? And now that I'm basically snapped here, what I can do is I'm going to go ahead and scale. And let's make sure that I'm on the world. So I'm doing Control and Shift to get to the world. And if I do a -1 in the X, this should flip it for me, which it does, right? So in essence, I just need to duplicate it. So I'll duplicate it, and then this guy will get flipped -1 in the X, and there's our pattern, right? So if we wanted to make this a little bit, asymmetrical, we could basically just hold down. We can hold down J and kind of look where, what piece of. Let me turn on wireframe on shaded here. Right, but you see that we're snapping to since basically the denser cylinder was exactly half, things are going to match pretty well. Right, we're going to have edges that'll match to this. So you'll see how this kind of pans out in a second, right? So from here now, we kind of have this asymmetrical shape, and we're kind of building these modular components and rotating them into place, right? So one of the things that I'll do here is kind of start blocking the cutout or the shape here of the cutout. So, and I'm actually going to do this within the side view. So I'm going to need a cut here. And then I'm going to need a cut here. And I know that I'm going to basically need a cut here as well. So I'll go back here to this view, right? So I'll put a cut here and I'll put a cut here. And I want to match that that shelf that we built, right? So I'm going to just basically extrude in. All right, and then I'm going to just play with the thickness. And I'm holding down Control Shift, and I'm just trying to match this as close as humanly possible. There we go. All right, that looks pretty good. Now we basically have to get rid of these guys here. And I'm going to get rid of this guy here and then this guy here. So you could probably see what I'm up to, right? So these are going to, end up being connected. All right, so there we go. So we're kind of matching that. Let's go ahead and insert an edge loop here. And then we'll insert a edge loop here as well. So that all matches well. I'll go ahead and select all my meshes. I'll go ahead and combine them. And then now, what I can do is make sure that this edge kind of matches up closer. This edge matches closer here. I'm going to go ahead and add edge loop here. Edge loop here. I'll take this guy here and this guy here. I'll bevel it. Go back. Add another division. And now all these should keyword match, right? But it's it seems, obvious, but it's better to just know right off the back instead of, selecting all your edges and then having Maya to tell you that, your bridge is not going to work. All right, so here we're good. We have 24, 12 on each side. We shift, right click, and then we'll go ahead and do a bridge. That looks good. And then we'll do the same exact thing on the other side. Just select that range, shift, right click, and then we'll go to bridge again. All right, so that looks good. And then from here, obviously, we have, we could basically just extrude down and then just kind of finish the model, right? So what I'll do is, because, we can't really condense this. This is going to cause kind of that pinching that happened here, right? So what I'll do here is just take this and then take this guy here, hit delete. And then I'm going to take all my verts, select, merge, and put this down almost to 0 and give it the lowest tolerance possible. All right, so from here, this is kind of the moment of truth. We'll go ahead and hit 3 again, and then we'll go ahead and go to shading and turn this off. And here, what's happening is that this is the blend and this is still the Lambert. So we should be able to clear that up by going to just give this the blend, and there we go, right? So that looks pretty clean. And, obviously it's not as complex as here, but it is asymmetrical, right? If we look at it from here, right, this is off to the side, and you could basically take these corners and kind of manipulate them, as you need. So the last order of the business, I'm just going to finish this with some quick details. So now what I can do is, since we kind of have an irregular pattern here, I'm going to leave that alone. But what I will do is I'll create another cylinder. And let's go back in here. And we'll do 56. And then I'll kind of scale. And if you actually play with this manipulator here, it's only going to basically work in the, leave the Y alone, right? So we're working in the X and then the Z. Just going to bring this guy down like this. Oops. And then go back to the scale tool. All right, so that looks good. It's kind of exactly where I wanted. I'm going to go ahead and peel off the caps and then make sure that this is pretty much here, right? And then I'll go to face mode. And I'll just select everything and then just deselect the middle, delete. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and isolate the mesh. Select all these edges here. And before I do that, let's actually get rid of all these caps. All right, so from here, we'll select these edges, bevel them, right? And I'll go a little bit wider, and then what I'll do is I'll select one of these faces. I'll go to select, and then I'll go to similar. It's going to select all the similar faces here. I'll extrude. So I extruded all the faces, right? And then I'm going to go ahead and push in. And what we could actually do first is just do a very small offset, right? And then, and that's going to kind of leave this outside border edge here. And then we can go ahead and do another extrude. And this time we could just push back. And then we can go ahead and add another set of divisions, right? So that's going to add like the holding edge this way and that way. And then from here, we can just get the insert edge loop tool and add a holding edge here. and hold an edge there, right? And if you really want to be light, you could go in there and delete these guys. I really don't care, but yeah, if you really want to be clean about it, you could delete that and maybe even scale down everything, just have it nice and flat. But that's fine for me since this is going to be actually just hidden within that cylinder. So let's test it out. That looks pretty good. If we wanted to have, kind of less drooping here, what we could do is just add a couple more divisions. I'll get the multi-cut, control middle mouse click. That's going to add one right in the middle. And then we'll add one here as well, right? So you'll see kind of the difference between the top and the bottom. And this one is moving a little bit more than this one just because of that extra one. And then you see how that got shifted down, right? It got pushed down. So modeling for sub D, sometimes you do end up just modeling extra geometry just to keep things a little bit better confined. All right, so that looks good. We'll go ahead and isolate that. And there we go. So now we kind of have this nice little, ribbed detail, this little accent piece, right? We could also go in here and go to mesh display and go to soften edge, and that way it looks better, right? Even in one mode. And then what I'll do from this point is kind of similar piece of detail here, but we'll simplify it. So I'm just gonna fast forward the video here and kind of finish this piece. So what I'm going to do here is I'll add a edge loop here and edge loop in the middle. Since I am working pretty much asymmetrically, I really don't know. I want to be as precise as possible. So that edge loop is going to give me kind of a reference, right? Something to kind of push towards, and I can do the same thing here. And what I'm doing, I'll hit D, and then I'll go ahead and orient the holding down control. I'll orient to this edge, and now I can basically push, and I'm pushing along that edge, right? So now that I'm pretty much precise, I can go ahead and just take those edges, delete them, and then I'll go in here. So like these guys. And you'll probably guess it, but I'm going to go ahead and bevel. I'll go ahead and go in here, select these. Same as before, just do a bevel. 3 divisions, that's going to hold up. And then maybe I want some radial detail just to break the piece up. So I'll go ahead and multi-cut. And I'll multi-cut a couple more times. Let's see if we try it again. Yeah, so that looks a little bit better. So we'll play with the first thing that we want to do is change the alignment to surface. You see how it sticks to the surface better. And then let's play with the radial offset. So what I'm looking to do here is preferably not have a big slant. So I'll play with the offset so these guys are pretty much up and down. And then what I can do from this point is we'll do, I should be able to, so I'll extrude inward just a little bit just to give it just kind of that holding edge there. And then I'll extrude one more time. And I'll play with the thickness there. And then we could add a couple divisions. And then what I could do for this guy I just select these, and then I can go ahead and do one more extrude, just to leave that holding edge on the other side. So whenever possible, I like to do extrudes as a way of adding holding edges. That way I can kind of keep the spacing the same and, you know, have everything pretty uniform. So this is how the model turned out. If I turn on the wireframe here, you'll see that all the edges are being held up well. We really don't have any pinching. And hopefully you guys will be able to learn how to apply some of these new workflows into your own hard surface modeling techniques within Maya. So I did decide to push this a little bit further, and this technique I'll probably do just a separate video on, but I'm just going to quickly talk about what I did to just actually create the thumbnail that you see on this video. Essentially what I did is just I assigned it a material, and then I basically gave this mesh a level 1 smooth, as you see. I went ahead and did a automatic mapping on this, so the UVs are pretty awful here, and I wouldn't recommend this for production, but you know, for a quick render, maybe you have a client, or in this case I just wanted to have a nice material with a HDR and just give it a little bit more life. So I gave it a automatic projection, and then I just used the layout tool within Maya just to get everything here within 0 to 1. So I took my mesh into Substance Painter, and you could obviously see the horrific UV layout here on the right hand side. I just quickly baked out the maps. Obviously for this, since the UVs are pretty much trash, you will have to go to something like a 4K to get decent resolution, since you know, nothing's really optimized and you are wasting a lot of pixels with a sloppy UV layout like this. So I baked up all the maps. Threw a smart material on there, played with the settings a little bit since the seams were everywhere. I try to minimize just some of those seams as best as I could. Then I opened up IRA and I played around with a couple of different HDR images, rotated the background, just kind of looked at where the highlights were landing on the model. I played around with the render settings to get the right quality, dropped a matte background, so I swapped it out from the visible HDR. And that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching this Maya hard surface modeling tutorial. Please let me know your thoughts on the comment section down below. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. And please share this with any hard surface modeler that you think will find value in this information. Also, make sure to check out my hard surface modeling cheat sheets by checking out the link down below, which is basically a guide that I prepared to help you if you want to get better and faster at hard surface modeling within Maya. Till we meet again, folks, I will catch you next time.